As someone who lives and works in this city, let me begin by saying how pleased I am that this amazing Collision Conference has come to Toronto. This is a vibrant, innovative, progressive city and is, in my opinion, the perfect place to host America's fastest growing tech conference. So welcome. As I mentioned, I help companies build and retain high-performance teams. In many instances, these companies and firms are in the technology space, often with a focus on finding solutions to environmental issues. For example, I'm on the advisory board of Full Cycle, a California-based firm founded by Ibrahim Al-Husseini. Ibrahim has an interesting story. He is a child of Palestinian refugees who grew up in Saudi Arabia and went on to college at the University of Washington in the US. Profoundly disturbed by the planet's rapid resource depletion, he determined to act as a catalyst for change. Ibrahim's vision for Full Cycle is to create an investment fund that accelerates the deployment of climate restoration technologies. It has been a privilege to work with Ibrahim and his team to help achieve that vision. I also can't help but think that there is something hopeful about the fact that a Jewish Canadian is working in such harmony and with such mutual respect with a Palestinian American. As far as I'm concerned, climate change and issues involving the planet's environment should be of concern to everyone, regardless of background or belief. In fact, this is an issue we should all unite around. Of course, while the business and technology sectors are important factors in finding solutions, governments must also play a pivotal role. This brings me to introducing an individual who plays such an important role in Canada's approach to environmental issues. The Honourable Catherine McKenna was elected to be the first female member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre on October 19, 2015. She was appointed Minister of Environment and Climate Change shortly thereafter. In that role, Minister McKenna helped negotiate the Paris Agreement and secured Canada's first plan with the provinces, the territories, and Indigenous peoples to address climate change and grow a clean economy. Minister McKenna is a graduate of the University of Toronto, the London School of Economics, and holds a law degree from McGill University, something we share in common, and is called to the bars of Ontario and New York State. Before entering politics, Catherine practiced competition and international trade law with leading firms in Canada and Indonesia, and was senior negotiator with the United Nations peacekeeping mission on the Timor Sea Treaty. She and her husband live in Ottawa with their 3 children and their dog Skokie. During her free time, the minister can be found in the water, swimming, canoeing, or kayaking. She is admired by her colleagues, respected by members of the loyal opposition, and widely known for her passion for our planet. Moderating a discussion with Minister McKenna on some of the burning issues of the day is Jonathan Bailey, Executive Vice President of the National Geographic Society and a true leader himself in conservation science. Please welcome Mr. Bailey and Minister Catherine McKenna.
Great. All right. Well, I'm super psyched to be here at Collision. I think it's pretty awesome you're here in Toronto. I'm from Hamilton, the Hammer, which is a little bit cooler, but Toronto's not bad. So there's a lot of problems going around in the world. And I assume that I see lots of good friends here. Hello, Lieutenant Governor. But we have no shortage of problems. Whether it's climate change, Canada just issued a report saying that Canada's climate is changing at twice the global average, 3 times or more in our north. We had a biodiversity report that says we may have lost 1 million species. We're polluting our oceans and rivers and lakes, and if we don't take action, we'll have more pollution, more plastic pollution by weight than fish by 2050. So it's good we're having this conversation because we need solutions. The world needs solutions. And we just had a nature summit, which was great in Montreal. And we were talking about this, how we need to link these agendas. And it's all hands on deck, all tools. But Jonathan, you were at the summit. And I think one of the outcomes was we got to blow up how we're looking at the planet. It's not climate and then biodiversity and then plastics and then oceans. So what's your take on that?
Well, first, I'd just like to say it's wonderful to be in Toronto. This is where I grew up, and I'm now working in the United States, but so wonderful to be back home. And the Nature Summit was amazing. It was also great to see Canada playing a leadership role, helping governments around the world understand that we need to be more ambitious when we're resetting the global framework for conservation in 2020. And we all know, basically, that from these reports that the environment is not in a good state. And that if we want to meet our climate targets or we want to meet our sustainable development targets, then we have to secure the world in a natural state. And a paper came out recently showing that we have to have at least half the world in a natural state if we are to achieve our climate ambitions or if we are to achieve our sustainable development goals. And Canada has such a strong role, an important role to play in this because we have both beautiful forests, but really intact ecosystems that play an important role in terms of storing carbon, sequestering carbon, and that will be probably the greatest gift we can give to the global community if we effectively manage that.
So we're all in, and now you're like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be here talking about tech. Don't worry, we're getting to it. We got to set the stage. So I went to Silicon Valley when I started this job. Prime Minister asked me to be the first Minister of Environment and Climate Change. I almost fell off my chair. And I was in Silicon Valley, and everyone's like, we got an app for your problems. Like, any problem you have an app. And I was like, okay, dudes, we're not saving the planet one app at a time. But the reality is there are so many different technologies that really are revolutionizing what we're doing. So let's talk a little bit about the technology. So we could just do a wrap now. So artificial intelligence, and we'll go into some examples, but artificial intelligence it can really revolutionize.
Yeah, I mean, we have, among my responsibilities, I oversee all our fellows. You will have heard of the older ones like Jane Goodall or Jacques Cousteau or Bob Ballard, who found the Everest, but we have thousands of explorers around the world. And I also oversee our labs. And in our labs, we get to develop some of the latest and coolest technology for exploration, for monitoring, for surveillance, and for engaging the public. And when it comes to AI, we're using it to basically create these camera traps that we can put in protected areas around the world that can identify both species and send the information up automatically, but can also identify poachers. So essentially creating an alarm system for the world's protected areas. And we're also working on a drone that can fly through forests, taking a 360 image of everything, and we can look at biomass or we can look at the species and monitor them in real time. So AI is completely transforming the field of conservation.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you think about AI combined with drones, satellite imagery, dealing with big data, you can totally transform. And I'll give you a little example. So we have species at risk. Sadly, many species at risk in Canada, including caribou. And so one of the ways you can do this is you can actually use the satellite imagery to see, okay, what is happening to the caribou and what's happening to their habitat. And you can have a much more sophisticated understanding about what you need to do to protect them.
Yeah.
But I think that you could say, so let's start with monitoring.
Yes.
Because monitoring, you got to be able to measure what you got to tackle.
Yeah.
And so one example, GHGSat. It's a company that can actually go in space and just find out what your emissions really are. Because the reality is, people say, we're tackling our emissions. But if you don't know what your baseline is, and you don't know what your actual emissions are, how are you really going to make progress on that? So great example of a company that's doing that. But so when you think about this, when you look at monitoring or measuring, what are the examples? Because you and I talk a lot about doubling the amount of nature protect. That would be very ambitious. Yeah. In Canada, we're doubling it, but it would be great to see if the world stepped up to do that. What would be this monitoring of protected areas? How does that look?
We've basically been dismantling the Earth without an understanding of the impact that we're having or being able to monitor or measure it. So just doing that without understanding the implications is somewhat unwise. But we're now in an era where we can actually see the change in real time. There's things like Global Forest Watch, where we can see how the forests are changing. We also have new technology where we can look right into protected areas around the world, and we can see how those habitats are changing. We can also create this new era of transparency. So before I was at National Geographic, I was working for the Zoological Society of London. And there I was working with oil palm companies, and we used to have to go out and go through the forest and see where their concession was and if they were going into the actual native forests. And then all of a sudden, the satellite technology came along, and we got them to give us their distribution maps, and all of a sudden we could see all of this from space. And it completely transformed the game. We could see everybody who was outside their areas, and before they could just do that in complete secrecy. So we're seeing that era of transparency spreading across, which gives us the information to act more responsibly.
Okay, so that's great. Now let's go into the solution space. So I want to talk about an amazing Canadian company. Anyone from Nova Scotia here? It's a company called Carbon Cure from Dartmouth. We had one person over there. Yay, awesome, from Nova Scotia. Great place to visit. And it's called Carbon Cure. Anyone here in school? Any engineers here? All right, this was a project that grew out of this the founder's master's thesis at McGill University. He had a problem. Problem was, how do you reduce emissions from concrete? So he came up with a process where you take emissions from industry, you inject it in concrete, you make cheaper, stronger concrete, and you reduce the emission profile by 20%. Like, we know the problem, too much pollution, and we know the solutions. Another company, Carbon Engineering. Anyone heard of Carbon Engineering? Yeah, so Carbon Engineering, a great company out of Burnaby, BC. What they do is they take emissions out of the air again, and then they create fuels, clean fuels. So there's amazing applications, and we need to figure these out. It is literally all hands on deck. Our planet is burning, and we need to figure out these solutions, and we need the clean tech world to get on board. And when I talk, because I know people like money. People like money here. You like making money. Like, you like coming up with ideas, but you like making money. $26 trillion economic opportunity of clean growth. These solutions. And that's not me speaking. That's the governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. You heard of him? Our greatest export. We're going to call back that loan soon. But he's amazing. He's said, like, we need to find these solutions. So that's where the economic opportunity meets this tech and finding these big solutions. But let's talk about some of the citizen engagement. Is this where they tell us we're leaving the stage?
That's right.
We're not done.
Exit
we are
left.
not done.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Citizen engagement.
Yeah.
Try to get it in.
Okay. Citizen engagement. Well, we're spending more time in front of our screens. Our children have a smaller distribution each year. And we need to get them out in the wild if they're going to be engaged and make the right decisions. And we have to engage with them with their technology, their medium. And so we're looking at supporting, or we are supporting, a whole range of apps which engage children with the natural world. So one example is an app we support called Seek. So you can download it on your phone, and then you can point it at any plant or any animal, and it'll tell you in real time what it is. I used it last weekend to show that I actually was sort of doing some gardening with some poison ivy. So it works. It tells you.
You're gardening with poison ivy?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
endemic
that's like,
there.
don't do that.
It's like trees there.
Okay.
So anyway, it's a perfect tool. There's also iNaturalist, which helps us understand where species are globally and helps us look at migration patterns, and you feel part of the science. There's Instant Wild, which takes images in real time. A camera trap image is taken, it comes up to your phone, and then you get to help identify that particular image. But what we've found is engaging young people in the process and making them feel part of the solution is the most important step in getting them to really be part of a broader movement as they get older.
And I think that's critically important. I always think, how do we get people to care about nature, care about our planet? It's really, I think it's the discover, connect, protect. And so you got to discover it. We're working with Google Earth to bring our high Arctic parks to people. We actually don't want a lot of people to go to our high Arctic parks. They're unique ecosystems. But if you can see them, you will realize how lucky we are to have these parks. In terms of the connecting, that we need to engage people. We're also working really closely with Indigenous peoples. And I think we have a totally different model that the world could follow, where we find solutions. Smart Ice is an example of a technological solution created by Inuit for Inuit. It uses technology to measure the thickness of the ice, because we literally have Inuit hunters that are going on the ice and falling through. Because for millennia, they've been able to tell the thickness of the ice, but they can't do it anymore because of climate change. And they're engaging communities to help provide the data points. And I think this is a humongous opportunity for us to do something transformative, but really uses people who care, gets them more engaged. And in the case of Indigenous peoples, they have traditional knowledge that we can merge with technology and bring it to a much broader audience. That's also part of reconciliation, which is extremely important to our government. Sorry.
Well, no, but that's...
We have like 53 seconds. Make it count.
Well, we have a large team on Everest right now, and it's about communicating in the right way. We shouldn't be pointing the finger and telling people that climate change and things exist. We need to have people understand it, experience it, see the people, see the animals that are being affected, and understand the implications. Understand the 1/5 of the world's population below the Himalayan mountain range, for example, that's going to be influenced by climate change. So then we can make the really informed decisions.
So the last thing I want to talk about is investment. Because when you measure things, if you understand, say the Amazon is worth how much is a carbon sink? I've been working on the market text in the Paris Agreement, Article 6. That's very nerdy, but very important. We need the markets. And we talked about this. If we could actually do a better job of measuring sinks, then we could put a value on it, and then you could have philanthropists, you could have companies, you could have folks actually investing in what we need to protect and really blowing up how we think about financing natural solutions. We didn't even get to synthetic biology, Jurassic Park. There was like huge opportunities there. I don't know, are they going to pull us off the stage, or should we have a go?
Synthetic biology, we've hit the Stone Age. We kind of discovered metal. We got to oil and gas. We had the Green Revolution. But all that will pale in comparison to what we're going to see with synthetic biology and AI. It's going to transform our lives entirely. There's really a lot of positive elements that will help with the circular economy. It'll help us do things like produce oil palm or meat in different ways. But there's also lots of negative things that we have to manage for as a society as we go forward.
Like Jurassic Park. I was talking to my kids. They're like, what? You're going to bring back dinosaurs? They were kind of a little bit worried about that aspect. But anyway, so to everyone who is here and listening, we need your help. People think it's about governments or maybe, not-for-profit organization. You are not-for-profit. Your side of things is organizations solving the problem. No, it's about the whole world solving the problem. And it's the clean tech side of things. It's the tech side, finding out these solutions, thinking differently about how we protect the planet. You guys are the inventors, the entrepreneurs, the innovators. You need to look at our challenges, and they are so big. We have so many challenges that you can reimagine how you use your technology to help us. But not just to help us, to help our kids. Because at the end of the day, as the last pitch I will have, it is all about our kids. That we owe it to our kids to figure this out, to ensure a sustainable planet. And we know the problem. We know many of the solutions. We know we can scale them. We know we can attract the financing. And Canada is certainly stepping up and playing a role. But for all of you folks, I don't care where you are from the world, help us. Help us. Because it's not just about governments negotiating agreements. It's actually about implementing solutions. And those are solutions that individuals can use. Those are solutions on a massive scale. Because it literally, our planet is burning. And we're all in this together. So help us find the solutions. All right, I don't know. They haven't even taken us off. We can even say more.
Yeah.
Anyway, go spend your money in Toronto. It's a great city.
Yeah.